It was a quiet afternoon at the elegant Aurelia Hotel, a place where marble floors gleamed like mirrors and crystal chandeliers bathed everything in soft gold. It was the kind of place where laughter was polite, footsteps were silent, and people spoke as if money had made them weightless. Among these perfect scenes of luxury moved Nora Velen, a young waitress whose presence barely stirred the air around her. 2 weeks into her new job, she was still learning to hide her nerves behind polite smiles. No one noticed her, not really. To most guests, she was just another face, another uniform in a world that demanded perfection without seeing the people who created it. But that day, everything changed. One quiet act, one moment of kindness, would transform her life forever, and remind even the coldest hearts that compassion still speaks, even in silence. Nora had always lived a quiet life. Silence was both her comfort and her cage. Her father had left when she was 12, and her mother worked double shifts to keep food on the table. Her younger brother, Eli, had been born deaf, and Nora learned sign language just so she could talk to him. Her best friend, her whole world. Every flick of her hand, every gentle motion of her fingers had been born out of love. Eli had passed away 2 years ago. Since then, silence wasn't peace anymore. It was memory. That afternoon, Nora was assigned to serve table 9, reserved for Adrian Cole, a billionaire whose face often appeared on business magazines, and his mother, Margaret Cole, a woman whose elegance carried both wealth and wisdom. Adrian was known for his sharp mind and colder heart. The staff whispered that he was as hard as the empire he had built. As Nora approached the table, tray trembling in her hands, she noticed something that made her pause. Margaret wasn't responding to the waiter's polite questions. Instead, she smiled faintly, watching lips carefully. Then Nora saw it. A small hearing aid glinting beneath her silver hair. Adrian leaned close to speak to her mother, enunciating each word with quiet care. The sight pierced Nora's heart. So familiar it hurt. Adrian caught her hesitation and frowned slightly, expecting the same awkwardness his mother often faced from others. But instead of fumbling, Nora took a deep breath, steadied her shaking hands, and began to sign. "Would you like still or sparkling water?" Her fingers moved gracefully through the air. Margaret froze, her eyes widening, hand flying to her chest in disbelief. Then, slowly, her expression softened into wonder. She signed back, her hands trembling. "You know sign language?" Nora nodded gently, her eyes warm with understanding. Adrian stared, stunned. For years, he had watched people turn away from his mother, too impatient, too uncomfortable to bridge the silence between words. But now, across a white linen table, he saw her laughing, truly laughing, as her hands danced in rhythm with the young waitresses. The lunch stretched on, but no one seemed to notice time passing. Nora didn't just serve, she connected. She signed each menu item, cracked a small joke in gestures that made Margaret's eyes shine, and brought more than food. She brought dignity. Around them, conversations faded. Guests stared quietly at the rare, beautiful sight. A billionaire's mother and a waitress talking in silence, yet saying more than words ever could. For Adrian, something inside him shifted. For the first time in years, he saw his mother alive. Not isolated, not fragile, but radiant. For Nora, it was something deeper. Each sign she made carried memories of Eli, his laughter, his tiny hands copying hers, the bond they shared beyond sound. As she moved her fingers, it felt like he was there again, smiling from somewhere unseen. When the meal ended, Margaret insisted on speaking to Nora personally. She reached out, taking Nora's hands in hers, her eyes brimming with tears. Slowly, she signed, "You made me feel seen today. You reminded me I'm not alone." Nora's throat tightened as she signed back, "You reminded me that love never disappears." Even the air around them seemed to pause, filled with something sacred. Later, Adrian asked Nora to step aside. She expected a reprimand. Maybe she'd overstepped. But his tone was gentle, uncertain in a way that powerful men rarely are. He told her how his mother had grown used to silence. Not the natural kind, but the cruel kind that comes from being ignored. and how no one had ever taken the time to speak her language. Then, he said something that Nora would never forget. "You reminded me of what matters most. Not business, not power, but connection." When Nora told him about Eli, Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, without saying much, he arranged for the Aurelia Hotel to sponsor free sign language training for all staff, in Eli's memory. He also offered Nora a full scholarship to study special education, saying the world needed more people like her, people who could bridge silence with compassion. News of what happened spread quickly. Guests who had witnessed the scene posted it online. Within days, millions had seen the story of the quiet waitress who spoke with her hands and healed a billionaire's heart. Margaret Cole began visiting the hotel regularly after that, always asking for Nora. The two became unlikely friends, proof that kindness, in its purest form, needs no words to be heard. Weeks later, Nora stood by the tall glass windows of the hotel during her break. The city skyline shimmered in the evening sun, and somewhere deep inside, she felt Eli's presence, gentle, proud, at peace. She whispered softly to herself, "Love never disappears. It just finds new ways to speak." And in that moment, she knew, even in a world full of noise, the loudest things are often said in silence.